My name's Robin Quartermain. I'm the chairman of the Chelmsford Scooter Club. I have been since it was formed 20 years ago. And basically, obviously, with the help of the members of the club, I'd run this weekend, put it together. Putting something back into the scene that I've enjoyed non-stop for the last 25 years.
They're designed to be ridden.
Just want to get back into riding again. So, yeah, very enjoyable, it's cool.
Oh, it's Lee. Oh, great. Lee, how you doing? Fucking hell, what a fuck up, eh? We got to age 21 and you weren't there, so we just carried on going.
Well, I'm going to go and park up somewhere.
Obviously, I'm like the main person that everybody knows, and you know, as the face of the weekend. But obviously, the rest of the club, you know, do their bit as well. In 1998, I was the general secretary of the Vespa Club of Britain, like the owners' club, and we did an event at Brentwood Centre in Essex, and they approached all the promoters, isn't the right word, but organisers of the big scooter rallies of that year, to whether they wanted to do something at Pontins, and I was the only one to actually come back and say, yeah, you know, what have we got to offer? Some parts of it get easier, some parts get harder, like, you know, but that's par for the course. You can't expect an easy ride when you're putting on an event for 2,500 people. You know, it's one of the biggest scooter events possibly in the world now, you know, all in one, everybody being in one place. I've been on the scene for the last 25 years, like since '78, like right at the start of the mod revival in '78. I'm really just putting something back. You know, I'm putting something back into the scene that I've enjoyed non-stop for the last 25 years. I've got loads of good mates out of it. You know, met quite a few famous people through it. You know, like my idols like Paul Weller and John Entwistle, God bless him. So you know, to do this a weekend a year is like, you know, small bit of time really, just to put something back, and everybody enjoys it, so brilliant.
Yeah, my name's Paul Stevens. Been at the scooter since 1979. Saw that daft film, everyone saw it, Quadrophenia. Had to have a scooter. Had the clothes, saw the film, get a scooter. First scooter was a Lambretta Li 150. Bought it off an old boy for 50 quid, wish I still had it, it'd be worth thousands now, number plate would be worth thousands. And then one day, because it kept breaking down, everybody kept spending their money on wing mirrors and everything when they should have been buying points and condensers, you know. We didn't know much about them in those days. It kept breaking down, so one day I came home from work, my dad had bought me a Vespa Rally 200, 1980, and lovely bike, super duper bike, and then, but everyone wanted a GS because of Sting and the film. If Pete Townsend had said, I'll ride an Li scooter with my hair cut neat, everybody would want one of those, you know.
There's a majority of people that do come back year after year after, and you get to know them, and you know, I can say to the missus, I'm just going to go and get a drink, and then 2 hours later I come back and she goes, where you been? I said, well, keep bumping into people and having a chat, you know, it's, you know, which is nice. When I was a kid, when I moved out to Chelmsford from East London, when I was, fairly young, there was a lad lived opposite my house, and every Sunday morning all his mates used to come around on scooters. This was late 60s, early 70s, so the mod thing had really died, but they had the tiger skin seats and the aerials and the lights and mirrors, etc. And then when I was a bit older, I got into the Who in the mid-70s. Really, it's kick-started with we've seen the Jam in '77 on the telly, and that tied in with the Who thing. And then, obviously, once you get to 16, you start to get to know what you want to do as a person. And I become a big Jam fan. I used to follow them about. Had all the gear and everything. And you thought you was the only person doing it, but obviously in each town there was somebody the same, like And
everyone wanted a GS, so I got one for 50 quid. Took the engine out of the Rally 200, put that in the GS. Lovely bike, rode that through the mid-80s up to 1986. Then unfortunately the riot in the Isle of Wight, I threw it all in. I said, oh, nothing more to do with this. 2 years later, married, mortgage, 2 cars. Let's get another scooter. Bought a GP 200 Lambretta. Then I bought a TS1 225. That was in a Series 2 Lambretta. And then this GS come up for sale. Got to have another GS. So bought this one, restored it. It was all white, nut and bolt restoration. Did it all myself. My friend sprayed the bike. I did the engine work and everything. Didn't know much about Claude in those days. And I've been riding it. I had it for riding it for 10 years. No problems, no faults. Then last year I decided to revamp it the way it is now. Sort of an Andre Baldet stroke Eddie Grimstead paint job. Rebuilt the engine. It's got a 180 conversion kit, new old stock 60s conversion. Got a Grimstead badge on the leg shields. My friend sprayed it for 200 quid, a bargain. I did all the panel work again, the engine rebuild, all the rest of it. I've always said scooters are not rocket science. You can do it yourself, have a crack. It's Meccano, that's all it is.
Hi, my name's Phil Ratcliffe. I'm from Bradford in West Yorkshire. I'm in the Knights of the Road Scooter Club. I got into scootering way back in 1973 when they first formed the Knights of the Road. And I've been involved in scootering off and on ever since then. And I've recently, the past couple of years, come back to it in a big way. This is my scooter. It's a GS 160 Mark II. Probably the best scooter ever made, in my opinion, anyway.
Yes, a GS 160 Vespa. It's a Series 1, which means it's got the toolbox behind the seat. Although I have updated it and put an SS 180 toolbox and a leg shield. You get oil and cans of beer in that toolbox, you can't in the one behind. So. Yeah, and I've entered it in shows through the 1990s and I've won. I must have said I've won most of them. That was when it was white. It actually hasn't won anything in its present form. People tend to prefer a proper restoration perhaps, but I've now resprayed it how I want it. So if it wins things, I'm fair play. If it doesn't, I'm not bothered.
We've done everything myself really, right down to making these little leather caps for the handle grips. We got it in good condition, so it wasn't too hard to do it.
No, the LCGB Super Shows back in the 90s. I think what impressed me at the time, before I had a GS, well I had a GS back in the old days, but before I got this one, which I've had 11 years, there's a guy called Jim McCabe, everybody's heard of Jim McCabe, and I used to love his GSs he used to put in his shows. He's got a lovely VS5, he's got virtually every model of GS ever made, and they are pucker bikes. And I saw his bikes and I thought, I must get another GS. And it would be my aim to beat Jim McCabe at a show, and I did. It was just plain white at the time, and I beat his VS5, and that was an honour in itself. And the VS5 was a lovely, it is and was a lovely bike.
The scooter doesn't really need much else. They speak for themselves. This GS is just a classic bike in itself. So I think if you add two of them and start painting them different colours and things like this, it dilutes them, in my opinion. So I think the scooter was made, and it was a classic when it was made, and it's always been a classic, and it deserved to be back as it was, really. I like Tigerific. That's a good custom Vespa, and that's really nice. Tutti Frutti is a good custom Lambretta, but of the classics, there's quite a lot here today. I think the Messerschmitt's going to win. I won furthest travelled with it at the Essex show, and it's got a couple of Vesta shows in the classics section.
Yeah, so yeah, I've sprayed it up myself. Wife likes the colours. She'd rather we had an LTT, but you know, got a GS Vespa, I think it's much better. Much better.
On this particular scooter, what would I change? Nothing. I like it as it is.
Classic Vespa, sponsored by Newcombs. GS 160. SBS. 266. Yes.
That's really sweet, isn't it? It's quite nice. It makes a change from like.
Yeah, you don't have a black and grey, trophy. That's the first time it's won anything. That's the first time it's won anything.
Is that the first time?
And it's present guys. What I think of winning, I'm Chelmsford punch, mate. I won't swear, it's going to tell you.
I'm Al. I run the Chelmsford Scooter Club out of Soho, London, and decided to take a little trip down to Camber Sands, see what's happening. I've never been here before, and it's brilliant already, having a really good time. I've been involved in the, I suppose you can call it the mod scene, since I can remember, when I grew up with it around the house. My dad was an original mod in the 60s. He owned a club in Soho in the 60s, and it's just everything I've grown up with. I got my first scooter about 7 years ago, which is this one. I did used to ride my dad's ones, and that was a lot of fun. I've always been into Lambrettas, always. I kind of prefer the styling of them. Nothing against Vespas, you know. There's a good few models of Vespas I like, but I've always preferred the Lambrettas really. So. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun, and this one is ultra reliable. It's been rebuilt by Patch at Scooter Surgery. It's got a GP 150 engine in it. It's a 1962 Li 125. This one I bought it in North London from a shop called Ace. They had two. They sell mainly like old BSAs and Nortons, and they had two Lambrettas in there. This was like the cherry one. It's got a history. It was imported from Milan about 2 weeks before I saw it. And it was painted by the original owner, who painted it with a paintbrush emulsion. So, but it ran, and the engine was really smooth, and I thought, well, you know, I can do a lot to this. And I wanted a mod scooter. My dad had two scooters. One was a mod scooter with all the bars and lights and mirrors and stuff, and the other one was standard. And I love them both, or love them both. He doesn't have them anymore. But I wanted a mod scooter to go with like my personality and the kind of scene that I'm into. My dad never really called himself a mod. They tend to call themselves stylists back in the 60s, not really mods. Mods were something coined by other people, maybe the press or whatever. And I've always kind of like really been into that scene. So obviously there's a time when I fell out of it for a long time and got into other things, but it's always been in my heart with the music and the dancing and the scooters. And it's just great to be back.
Vespa GS, best Vespa ever designed. Best shape. It's got a backside like Jennifer Lopez, right? It is just superb shape. I like P200Es for reliability, all the rest of it, but GS Vespa, all of them, the 150s right up to the 160 Series 2, best Vespa ever built, best shape. Don't know what they did do with a new one. Should have done a new one with a 200 engine in it. I went to Brighton in 1980. All got chased around by the skinheads. I remember that quite well. But we went by train. We didn't go on the scooter then. Went to Brighton. A couple of years later on the National Scooter Rally. Brilliant atmosphere. Absolutely superb. That was when the police wouldn't let us out of the car park on the seafront. They blocked off the blocked off the Madeira Drive, and you weren't allowed to take your scooter out once it was in there. You also weren't allowed to take alcohol in the car park. But what they didn't realise, of course, is that you could get on the Volks Railway up by the pier, get on that, and then go past the police roadblock with all your beer. All right. In fact, I think they should have another Brighton rally, actually. There hasn't been a proper Brighton national run for years, and there should be one.
It was new to us, you know, discovering the 60s soul, you know, and the bands of the 60s, but at the same time we had our own bands, you know, like the Jam, like Secret Affair, the Lambrettas, people like that, who were new and fresh and a different take on the mud thing from the 60s.
Oh, the Ace Cafe back in the 60s was a big rocker haunt. Then, over the years, it got shut down, turned into a tyre place, and then got this, guys bought it and bought the name back, Ace Cafe, got it as a registered trademark. And it's now a sort of a rock and roll 60s cafe, bit of fun. Rockers still go there, mods go there, scooterists go there, they have soul nights, rock and roll nights, whatever. And they do an awful lot for charity, so they might organise the Ace Cafe run to Brighton. Everyone would start off at the Ace Cafe, go to Brighton, there'd be motorcycle scooters, everybody rubbing shoulders, having a good time. I'm not sure that the chaps in the racing levers and the racing bikes get their head round it, but certainly all the old boys with the fishing socks on the old BSAs and that think it's great. They think it's a great crack. People just coming out of their houses looking. On the way down here today, they're all stood there like gobsmacked. You know, all these. I mean, there was only 9 of us, but it was like, what's that? What's going on? They're all coming out of the shops and all. Oh, I haven't seen them running for years. You know, they've always had a. I mean, this is a GS 160. They've always had a GS 300 that did 90 miles an hour, and it's yeah, right, mate, whatever. I had a chap once said, oh, they make those in the Isle of Wight, don't they? And Vespers. I said, no, mate, no, they're made in Italy. He said, no, well, mine had Douglas written on it. I said, well, that was Douglas Bristol, mate, not the Isle of Wight, you know. But he was convinced, I mean, he had one in the 60s, but he was convinced it was made in the Isle of Man. He had Douglas on it. I think, like I say, that is the future of scootering, automatics. It won't be my future. I'll still have this until the day I die, and then the kids might get it, cut it down and paint it black, I don't know. But no, automatics now are the future with the demise of the P200E, with the emissions laws and all the rest of it, unfortunately. If you want to get a 200 Vespa now, it'll be the new GT200, so fair play. Yeah. And it looks a bit retro. Should have been one of these, should have been one of these. Without a doubt.
Dancing, drinking, chaining the bike up, having a drink, 'cause I don't drink really when I'm in London. Listening to soul, just having a complete laugh with my mates. And just just enjoying the whole lot and not thinking about work, just getting away from it all like everybody else. And it's so good because a place like this, and every single rally you go to, everybody's got that common bond, yeah, the common denominator, which is scooters and the love of music. And you know, whether you're into like reggae or ska or blue beat or northern or you know mod or R&B, it's all the same. Everyone's got a respect for everybody else because of that. And I don't know any other scene that has that kind of passion that's still going after so many years. You know, I suppose there are like, you know, a small section of teddy boys about, or whatever you want to call them, drapes or whatever. Maybe few and far between, but no scene has got this kind of passion. No scene that I've ever come in contact with. Yeah, and it's just like, no, yeah, it's just the passion is just undeniable and unbelievable. Always gets me. You know, so it's a good scene. I'm never going to leave it ever for the rest of my life. You know, bury me on my scooter after vertical or something. You know, I get a lot of good reactions driving down the street on a bike. You know, the same kind of look that people will give maybe a Lamborghini Countach or whatever, and oh look at that, it's something they've never seen before. You'll either, it's kind of like one of a few things. You'll either rekindle memories for the older generation, which I love doing because you know, people will come up and talk to me about the bike. Oh, I used to have one of those when I was a kid. You know, taxi drivers will stop. Oh, you know, and they'll carry